Start for the warm welcome, and thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. Like Tushta said, we're visiting from Los Angeles, and I always feel welcome and sheltered in this place, in this temple. I want to start by offering my heartfelt gratitude to all my teachers who, through love and with surgical care, have opened my eyes with the light of knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Shakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And I want to offer my deep, heartfelt gratitude towards you, Srila Prabhupada, who through great endeavor, great calamities, and dedication at an old age, you came to the West to save people like me who you didn't even know. And I cannot imagine where my life would be without your love and your care and your endeavor. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Prasatyada Sajane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Kam Karoti Vachulantam Garamayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavan Sri Chaitanya Krishna. In the Vedas, it is explained how the soul wanders around the universe, searching for pleasure, searching for satisfaction. And in that wandering, we go up and down, left and right, and we take different births. We evolve or devolve through different species of life according to our desire and according to the result of our actions. And for every action, there's an equal reaction, and we call that karma. And the accumulation of our reactions is our karma. And our desire and our karma takes us through different experiences. And so right now, all of you who are sitting here, you're a spirit soul, you're a particle of consciousness inside this body, and you're experiencing this class, this temple, this room, through your eyes, through your ears, through your mouth, through your skin, through your mind, through your intelligence. And you have those things, you are not those things. So you are that particle of spirit soul that's inside the body, that animates the body. And so that particle that is you has been wandering around the universe, and outside there are spirit souls having a squirrel experience, and spirit souls having a tree experience, and spirit souls having an ant experience, and according to the senses that those bodies have, they have different experiences of the world. And so it is explained that when we act properly, when we act in ways that are conducive to our spiritual development, we get this opportunity to have a human body. And all of you are very fortunate because you have a human body and you have 2 ears and a mouth, and you can see and you can hear. But most importantly, we get to inquire. This is the species where we get to ask those really profound questions. And usually, my experience as a dad is that around the age of 4 or 5, we start asking some profound questions. What is death? Why do we die? What happens when we die? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I here? And for some of us, those questions have become really loud, and they become a yearning. We yearn for answers, and we search for those answers. And my sense is that all of you, most of you that are here, have that really loud calling to find for answers, and that's why we are here today. And I know it can be a little bit theoretical to talk about evolving and devolving through different species across the universe, and it might feel like, oh, it's theory there, but actually it's happening to us. It's happening to us right now in this moment as we're here. And so that journey has brought you here to Denver, Colorado, on December 29 at around 12:45 p.m. So I invite you to be present, allow yourself the next 25 minutes to be here, not in the future, not in the past, just here. And and for some of you, I guess just based on the level of enthusiasm and singing in this room, you're very seasoned and you bring a lot of spiritual energy, and you have read this text and you have come across this text and you have studied them and you have meditated on this text. And at the same time, I want to invite you to hear the text as if it was the first time. Imagine a blind man who maybe 30, 40 years into his life, through some miracle of medicine, he gets his eyesight for the first time. And that blind man gets to see a sunset for the first time. And he sees the colors and the varieties and the sun moving and the light and the changes of orange and red and all the variations that maybe people like me who are used to having eyesight might look at a sunset and be like, oh, that's cool, that's nice, and then we might just walk by. And so just hear the text like that with a sense of awe, with a sense of appreciation, and see what it does to your heart, see what it moves you, see what lessons come along. So before we dive into the reading, I want to give a little bit of context, because these prayers are really, really special. And I was telling Tushta the other day that if one day you landed in a desert or the middle of nowhere and all you had were these prayers, a few pages with these prayers, you can dedicate your life to introspection and meditation just on these prayers, and you would achieve the perfection of life just through meditating on these prayers. So they're quite special, and I want to acknowledge that it's a little bit intimidating for me to talk about this because it is very, very deep and profound. So the context of what we're about to read happens within about 5,000 years ago, and it's described in great detail in the Mahabharata. I don't know if anybody here has read the Mahabharata, just for an idea. Okay. So the Mahabharata is the historic recollection of the events that happened about 5,000 years ago when Krishna was present, and at the center of that is a dynasty called the Kuru dynasty. And at the top of the dynasty, there are three siblings: Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. Some of you might have heard those names. And Dhritarashtra is the eldest of Vyasadev's children. And he is the one that should naturally inherit the kingdom. And we're not talking about a small kingdom, we're talking about the biggest kingdom on earth. But somehow he's born blind, and so he's not qualified to rule the earth. He's not qualified to be the king because he doesn't have eyesight. He doesn't have eyesight. So his brother Pandu is the next in line, and so he is naturally the one that inherits the right to lead the dynasty. And Pandu has 5 children, of which you heard earlier the name Arjuna. So there's Yudhishthir, the eldest, Bhima, Arjuna, Nikul, and Sahadev. And Dhritarashtra, the blind king, has 101 children. And Pandu has 2 wives. One of them is Kunti, and the other one is Madri. And so throughout the Mahabharata, there's this push and pull and quarreling, because what happens is Pandu ends up dying. And so now his 5 children are under the care of the blind king, who's a good king, but he's blind. And there's incredible rivalry between his children and the Pandavas for the kingdom. And it's pretty obvious that the Pandavas are not only the rightful heirs of the kingdom, but they're qualified. Like they're strong, they're virtuous, they're intelligent, they're spiritual, they're moral. They're the example of virtue personified. As you read the Mahabharata, it's just an incredible example of virtue and moral character. And the Kurus, the children of Dhritarashtra, it's pretty obvious that they're not very friendly, they're not very kind to the Pandavas. And actually, they're pretty devious. Like they put them through suffering after suffering, calamity. They try to kill them over and over and over to gain the kingdom, and through shame and humiliation, and through all this pushing and pulling and battling, we end up with the world divided into two camps. And there's a world war, which is called the Kurukshetra War. And so this is the climax of the Mahabharata, the beginning of the war. And in this moment of climax, when the whole world is about to go into battle, and it's not a pretty battle, it's like on one side there's fathers, and on the others there's children and teachers and students, and it's like people who love each other are on opposite camps. It's just this terrible situation. And in that moment is when the Bhagavad Gita is spoken. In that moment of climax intention, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken. And so that's kind of like a little bit of the context. And Queen Kunti, through all this, she suffers incredible amounts of calamities. And in the prayer, she lists some of the calamities. And I want to invite my son Adi, who's a bright young man who has read the Mahabharata maybe 5 or 6 times, to kind of give us a little synopsis of some of the calamities that Queen Kunti goes through.
Hi, I'm Adi, and I'm just going to speak of some of the calamities that Queen Kunti went through. I think the first big one that we're going to talk about is Pandu's curse. So one day when Pandu and his wives were going to the forest to hunt, there was 2 deers, and they saw them and they were like, oh, that's a great target. So Pandu shot both of them with killing shots, but they transformed to a sage and his wife in the forest, and it turns out that those 2 deer were actually 2 sages who were enjoying themselves in the form as deer, but the sage curses Pandu, so he says, as I cannot enjoy my wife in peace in this form, then you may never enjoy your wives again, or you too will suffer this fate and die. So later on, they go to the forest, Pandu and his wives, so that they don't suffer from the death, like the curse, because otherwise he would see his wives when they're the most beautiful in the kingdom. He thought it would be easier in the forest, but later on he still can't control himself and he dies. So I think that's the first big calamity for Queen Kunti, is the death of her husband. I think the next one is that after the death of Pandu, they go back to the city where they used to live with all the Dhritarashtra and all their children. And now the Pandavas are born, and that's another talk about when they're born and all that. But Bhima always loved sporting with the sons of Dhritarashtra. He always liked fighting with them, but he was always too powerful. So Duryodhana thought of a plan. So he took all the sons of Dhritarashtra and Pandu to the forest one day to play, and they poisoned a cake for Bhima, and they said, hey Bhima, come eat with us. And Bhima, who loved eating, ate the cake readily, but he got poisoned, so he was knocked unconscious. So Duryodhana and some of his brothers picked him up, tied him, and threw him in the river. And then all the boys went back, but they noticed that Bhima was missing, Pandu's sons. So Queen Kunti was extremely worried about her child and where he was. I think that is the second calamity that happened that she was really worried about. I think the next one is that Duryodhana had endless amounts of plots to try and kill the Pandavas and their family. And the next big plot was he invited them to this house that he built with his servants at this town that was going to have a big annual festival. And he invited the Pandavas there, and they stayed the night, but it turns out that that house was completely flammable, and Vidura, who was Pandu's brother, heard about it, and he cared about the Pandavas a lot, so he told Yudhisthira in a language that only they knew, that the house was extremely flammable, and that Duryodhana was going to light it at fire while they're sleeping. So Yudhisthira knew of that, but he still entered. But he had like a giant party on the day of the festival at the house, and the person that was going to set the house on fire got drunk, so they fell asleep early, so they couldn't light the house on fire. But what the Pandavas did is they lit the house on fire, took their mom Kunti, and they ran into the forest to run away. And that's the first big calamity. That's the third big calamity, because everyone thought that the Pandavas were dead, and Kunti had to live in the forest for several years. I think the next big calamity, which is one that starts the beginning of like the climax of the Mahabharata, is that they have a gambling match, like a dice match, the Pandavas versus the Kauravas, and the Pandavas lose because the Kauravas' uncle was extremely skilled at dice at that time, so he won, and they lost everything they had and had to be exiled to the forest for 14 years. So that means that Queen Kunti couldn't see her sons for 14 years, because she wasn't exiled, only they were. And after that, the Kurukshetra war starts after the 14 years with all the kings of the world and everyone. And the Kurukshetra war also involved like the death of all her relatives and all the people she cared about, including 8 of her grandsons. And she was so scared because her sons could have died any moment. And I think that's the final big calamity that Queen Kunti had to suffer.
And so imagine living this lifetime of aggressions from your relatives, and not just like small aggressions, but like your relatives trying to kill your children over and over and over, calamity after calamity after calamity. And Kunti Devi just takes it with so much grace and elegance, and really connecting with what is the purpose of all this, and really taking shelter in the Supreme Lord. And all this is orchestrated under the watch. I know this is maybe an oxymoron to say under the watch of the blind king, but it's happening under the watch of the blind king, who knows that this should not be happening, who knows that his children are not behaving properly, who knows that his children should be chastised and punished and put aside, and that the Pandavas should be the rightful heirs and they should earn their kingdom. And so through this whole period, Dhritarashtra knows what is the right thing to do, and yet he can't convince himself to do that. And we call that the Dhritarashtra syndrome. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but there are things in my life I know that I want to do, and I know I should do, and I know they're good for me, and somehow I cannot convince myself to do them. And some of those things can be really simple, I know I should budget every month and take care of my money more carefully, and every month I say, I'm going to do it next month, and maybe I'll do it next month, and then I just don't do it. Or things that are more profound and important, like maybe dedicating myself to my japa more attentively, or being more sincere with my sadhana, other things. We all have those things that we know we should do, and we don't need a self-help book to realize what those things are. We pretty much know, and yet somehow we're challenged to commit to them. And I was just thinking about that this morning. I was like, oh yeah, it's New Year, and so many of the New Year resolutions are things that we know we should do, we know we want to do, and somehow we can't convince ourselves to do. So we're getting to this point where the war happened. Queen Kunti is left alive with her children. Pretty much everyone that was in the battle except a handful of people have died. They're sitting in the ashes of the world. There's not much left. And throughout her whole lifetime basically, Krishna has protected the Pandavas. Krishna has protected Queen Kunti. And as I say that, I'm just thinking wow, what a blessing to have Krishna's protection like that. Who wouldn't want to have that that protection from the divine. And so they're sitting in the ashes, and Krishna's getting ready to leave, and he's literally like leaving. And so this is the moment when Queen Kunti starts praying to Lord Krishna. So I want to read just the translations, just the prayers, so we get a little bit of the flow and the mood, and then I want to come back to one text if we have time. So the prayers start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, text 8, Canto 1, chapter 8, text 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimati Kunti said, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the regional person and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of diluting energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the heart of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other coward men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands and lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. O Rishikesh, master of the senses and lord of the lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long in prison and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from the poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapons of Ashwatthama. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. These are the first 8 prayers that Queen Kunti speaks. And just because we're kind of running a little bit short on time, I wanna mention a few things that I want to close with. There's one verse in particular that I feel inspired by today, which is verse 21, and I'll read the Sanskrit. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devakinandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other coward men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. So a few texts ago, we heard that Krishna is invisible, that he is like an actor dressed and he's only visible to his devotees, and for everyone else he is not visible. And so here in a lecture that Srila Prabhupada gave in 1973, which I want to read a few extracts from that lecture, Srila Prabhupada mentions that this verse is an identification card for Krishna. It's telling us who Krishna is. And so Srila Prabhupada says, so now that personality is referring to Krishna, although alakshya, invisible, now by the grace of Kunti, we can understand that although the Supreme Person is invisible, now he has appeared to be visible, Krishna. So Kunti Devi is pointing out that who is this person? Who is this alakshya, invisible person? Here, Krishna. Krishna? There are so many Krishnas. Vasudevaya, the son of Vasudeva. There are many Vasudeva. No, Nanda Gopanandanaya, the foster son of Nanda Maharaj. Three times she's pointing. Here is Krishna, here is Krishna, here is Krishna. Krishna, who officially takes his birth as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, but he enjoys the company of Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj, the childhood company. This is Krishna's pastimes. So very often in important prayers, and I can think of one that comes to mind, the prayer starts with a verse like this, with an identification verse. If we think of the prayers by Lord Brahma, the first verse is Ishvara Paramakrishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So Lord Brahma, when he prays, he offers his prayers to Krishna, he just doesn't just say like, hey God, hey Krishna, like he's saying, I'm addressing you, the Supreme Creator, the cause of all causes. And so in this example, we can see that. Well, I want to finish reading Prabhupada's text. Sorry, because the last paragraph is where it really touched me. So by following the footprints of devotees like Queen Kunti, we shall be able to understand, as she's pointing out, Krishnaya Vasudevaya, Devakinandanaya cha, Nanda Gopakumaraya. This is Krishna's identification. Just like we take identification of a person. What is your father's name? So here we're presenting God with his father's name, with his mother's names, with his attributes. In this paragraph, Prabhupada says, by following the footprints of devotees like Queen Kunti. And this is always, when I hear this, for me it's like a sign of attention. It's like, really pay attention when Prabhupada says this, because have you ever, I'm going to bring a mundane example, but have you ever watched a stunt on TV or somewhere and they say, warning, this stunt is performed by professional drivers or professional acrobats or whatever it is, right? And so when we hear following the footprints, to me there's a warning that we should not imitate. That these are pure devotees of the Lord who have come here to teach us and to perform the pastimes with the Lord. And so oftentimes at the heart of Queen Kunti's prayer is the idea that I welcome calamities over and over because that's how I have your darshan, and that's how I will get out of this world, by going through those calamities. And that's where we want to be really careful to not fall into the footprints and to explain what does it mean to follow in the footprints versus imitating. A few times it's explained that the difference is, and when we follow in the footprints, when we imitate, we don't have the spiritual advancement to be there. So obviously the prayers by Queen Kunti are incredibly profound and advanced and deep. And so for me, what it means to follow in the footprints of Queen Kunti, of Kunti Devi, is to pray to Krishna in a way that's very personal, in a way that really connects. And for all of us, that might look different. You know, we all have our particular deity attachment or a particular form of Krishna, or even if you don't relate to Krishna, a particular form of God, a particular form of divinity. And when we pray, to really pray to that very specific person that we connect with, so that we can have a personal relationship, because in the end, bhakti is about having a personal relationship with God, which we all have. It's just awakening that love that we have with that person. And the other thing that comes to mind from this verses for me, that feels like falling into the footprints, is to offer our hearts with whatever is there. Oftentimes, as bhakti practitioners, we think, well, I gotta purify myself, I have to be perfect, I have to offer what is perfect for Krishna. And what if in my heart I'm feeling sadness? What if I'm feeling confusion? Krishna, I don't know why this is happening to me. Should I go to Krishna and say, thank you, Krishna, for the calamities? That wouldn't be genuine. And obviously we can't offer what we don't have. We can't give Krishna what we don't have. So whatever's in our heart when we're praying is to connect with that, with whatever's happening for us, to be authentic. And I know this community is going through some calamity by the loss of one of your members. And the second warning is to not spiritually bypass the philosophy. If you're really feeling sincere pain and sadness and sorrow for the loss of a friend or someone you serve with, just be with that sorrow, be with that sadness, be with that pain. And in that pain, in that sorrow, and in that sadness, the spiritual realizations will come. If you find yourself desperate looking through Shastra, through the different books for answers, and nothing really connects, maybe it's because you're not there. You know, just be with whatever's happening for you, and be present with that. There's a rabbi that wrote a book called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? And at the heart of his message is that we may not see God's hand in the calamity, we may not see Krishna's hand in the calamity in the moment, but we can always see Krishna's hand in the support, in the love, in the devotees, in those that are around us, that are picking us up and helping us walk through those very difficult times. So if you're one of those that is picking up a friend and you're supporting someone who's going through a calamity, just be with them. Sit with them in the ashes and whatever's happening for them, and let them come to their own realizations. And so I wanna close with a couple minutes of singing meditatively. So we're gonna do a little bit of an experience. So I'm gonna ask you to sit a little bit taller, just for a second. So you bring your mind back into attention. When we sit taller, we awaken the mind. And take a deep breath and be present. And if you feel safe, you can close your eyes. If not, you can keep your eyes open. And in your mind's eye, connect with that form of Krishna, of divinity, of God, with that form that you really connect with. It might be Shri Sri Radha Govinda, it might be another deity, it might be some other relationship that you have with the divine, and really bring that into your mind's eye. And hold on to that vision like a lifeline. Just hold on to that vision. Keep it in your mind. And now go into your heart. Just notice what's there. Could be gratitude, could be joy, could be appreciation, maybe sadness, maybe confusion. And we're going to chant. And we're going to chant because it's one of the most effective ways to sing the names of the Lord in a heartfelt way is to chant collectively. And so chant, when we chant to that person that's in your mind, that person that you want to have a relationship with, that form of Krishna that you want to have a relationship. Be very precise with that image. And offer what's in your heart as you sing. for your